My name is Amara, and everything I am about to tell you truly happened to me. I was hired as just the cleaning maid to serve at the biggest society wedding in all of Lagos. By the end of that night, the bride made me kneel on the cold marble floor in front of 500 people. She laughed, they all laughed, and I said nothing. Because I did not yet know the secret this family had buried for 22 years. I did not know that the groom standing at that altar was my own blood brother. And I had no idea that the fortune everyone was bowing to legally belonged to me. So stay with me until the very end, because the moment they learned who I truly was, every proud face in that room turned white. So after you hear how they treated me, you tell me, did they deserve what came next? Let me start from the very beginning. I grew up in a small 2-room house at the edge of the city, raised by a woman named Ada. Ada was not my mother by blood. She always told me she found me. When I was little, I did not understand what that meant. I only knew she loved me. We were poor. Some nights, we shared one plate of rice between the two of us. But Ada made that little house feel like the safest place in the world. She worked as a seamstress. Her fingers were always sore, but she never complained. Around my neck, for as long as I can remember, I wore a small golden locket. Ada said it was the only thing I had with me the day she found me. She told me never to lose it. Inside the locket was a tiny, faded photo of a baby and a woman I did not recognize. I used to stare at that woman for hours, wondering if she was my real mother. Ada would go quiet whenever I asked about it. One day you will know, Amara, she'd say. But that day did not come while she was alive. 2 years ago, Ada passed away. The illness took her slowly. I sold almost everything we had to pay for her medicine. At her funeral, I stood completely alone. She was the only family I had ever known. After she was gone, I had nothing but that locket and the small skills she taught me. So I did what I had to. I started cleaning houses for the rich families of Lagos. I scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and stayed invisible. That is what a maid learns to be, invisible. I told myself it was honest work, and it was. But the way some people looked at me, like I was less than human, that never stopped hurting. Still, I saved every naira I could. I had one dream, to open a small tailoring shop like Ada's. That dream is what kept me going, and it is what led me, one morning, to answer a phone call that would change my entire life. The call was from an agency that staffed big events. They needed extra cleaners for a wedding. Not just any wedding, the wedding of the year. The Okonkwo family was marrying their only son. Even I had heard the Okonkwo name. They were one of the richest families in all of Nigeria. Oil, banking, real estate, their name was on half the towers in the city. The pay for one night was more than I made in a whole month. I could not say no. So I ironed my one clean uniform, tucked my locket under my collar, and I went. The Okonkwo Estates was not a house. It was a kingdom behind tall golden gates. When the gates opened, I actually forgot to breathe for a moment. Marble everywhere, fountains, a driveway longer than my entire street. Servants in white gloves moved like a silent army, and I was the lowest of them all. The head housekeeper lined us up and looked at us like we were furniture. But one older woman among the senior staff caught my eye. Her name, I later learned, was Mama Ngozi. She was maybe 60, with kind, tired eyes, and she watched me a little too long. I did not think much of it then. I had 500 guests to prepare for.
Mama Ngozi finally looked away, but I caught her whispering to another servant, glancing back at me.
Something about the way she stared made my skin prickle, but I pushed it aside.
I have come here to clean, collect my pay, and leave. Nothing more.
That was the plan. But this house had other plans for me. The groom's name was Chidi Okonkwo. When I first saw him, I felt something strange in my chest. I could not explain it. He looked kind, a little sad, like a man carrying a weight. He walked past the staff, and unlike the others, he actually nodded at us. A small thing, but I noticed. The bride was a different story entirely. Her name was Vivian. Vivian was beautiful the way a knife is beautiful. Sharp, cold, and made to cut. From the moment she arrived, she treated the staff like dirt under her heels. And for some reason, she decided to hate me most of all. Maybe it was the way I looked her in the eye. Poor people are supposed to look down. The first time she accidentally spilled red wine down my uniform and blamed me.
Clumsy little thing. Can you people not do anything right?
I apologized, even though it was her hand that tipped the glass. I had learned to swallow it. She made me get on my knees and wipe the wine off her shoes in front of the other guests. People watched. Some laughed. Nobody helped. That is what money does to people. As I knelt there, my locket slipped out from under my collar and swung in the air. And across the room, an old woman dropped the tray she was holding. It was Mama Ngozi. She was staring at my locket like she had seen a ghost. I quickly tucked it away, but the damage was done. She had seen it, and she went pale. I did not understand why a cheap locket would frighten a grown woman so badly. I would understand very soon. But first, the night was about to get much worse for me. An hour later, as I carried empty trays to the kitchen, Mama Ngozi pulled me into a quiet hallway. Her hands were shaking. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face.
Chow, that locket around your neck, where did you get it?
I told her the truth, that I had worn it since I was a baby, that it was all I had.
And the woman who raised you, was her name Ada, a seamstress?
My blood went cold. I had never told her Ada's name. How could she possibly know?
Oh my God, it is you. After all these years, it is really you.
I asked her what she meant. She opened her mouth to answer, but then footsteps came down the hall. It was Vivian's assistant looking for me. Mama Ngozi grabbed my wrist hard.
Say nothing to anyone. Do not leave tonight before you speak to me. Promise me.
I promised, though I had no idea what I was promising. My mind was spinning. Who was this woman? How did she know Ada? And why did a locket make her weep? But there was no time to think. Vivian wanted me. And Vivian was not done humiliating me yet. because the main ceremony was about to begin, and she had planned something special. Something designed to break me in front of every important person in Lagos. The grand hall was full now. 500 guests in gold and silk, glittering under crystal chandeliers. I was told to stand against the wall with the other servants and hold a tray of drinks. Then Vivian took the microphone. She said she wanted to play a little game for her guests. My stomach dropped. Her eyes found me across the room, and she smiled.
You, the clumsy maid, come here. Everyone, watch this.
The whole room turned to look at me. 500 faces. I wanted to disappear into the floor. She pulled a thick stack of cash from her purse and threw it on the marble in front of everyone.
There's a man's salary on the floor. Get on your knees and pick it up, one note at a time. And thank me for each one. Loudly. Let's see how badly you people want money.
The room laughed. That cruel, comfortable laugh of people who have never gone hungry. I stood there, my face burning, tears stinging my eyes, and for a moment I almost knelt. Because I was poor, because I needed that money, because that is what they expected of me. But then I heard Ada's voice in my head. Your dignity is the one thing no one can take, Amara. So I did not kneel. I put the tray down and I looked Vivian dead in the eye. Keep your money. My knees don't bend for cruelty, not even when I'm hungry. The laughter stopped. The entire hall went dead silent. Nobody had ever said no to Vivian. Her face twisted with rage. She raised her hand to slap me in front of everyone. And that is when a deep, powerful voice cut across the entire hall.
Enough! Lower your hand, Vivian. In my house, we do not strike the helpless.
Every head turned. Walking slowly toward us, leaning on a silver cane, was the patriarch himself. Chief Emeka Okonkwo, the most powerful man in the room. Chidi's father. And he was staring at me. Chief Emeka walked right past the body and stopped in front of me. His eyes were wet. He looked at me the same way Mama Ngozi had, like I was a ghost from his past.
Child, forgive an old man. But that locket, may I see it? Please.
The whole room was confused. Why was the great Chief Emeka begging a maid to see her necklace? With shaking hands, I lifted the locket and opened it. He looked at the tiny photo inside. And this powerful, unbreakable man began to cry in front of 500 people.
It's her. It's my wife. This is the locket I gave my daughter the day she was born.
I could not breathe. Daughter? What was this man talking about?
22 years ago, my baby daughter was taken from this house, kidnapped in the night. We searched everywhere. The police found nothing. My wife, she died of a broken heart. I never stopped looking. For 22 years, I offered a reward for any sign of her. The only thing she had on her that night was a golden locket with her mother's photo inside.
The hall erupted in gasps. Everyone turned from the chief to me, to the locket, and back again. My legs went weak. The room began to spin. It could not be. It simply could not be true. Then Mama Ngozi pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her old face.
I was her nanny. I was there the night she was taken. I would know that child anywhere. She has the birthmark on the back of her left shoulder, shaped like a small star. Check.
My hand flew to my shoulder. The birthmark I had my whole life. The one Ada always kissed goodnight. And in that instant, in front of all of Lagos, the truth began to break open like the sun. Chief Emeka reached out with a trembling hand and gently turned my shoulder toward the light. When he saw the small star-shaped birthmark, a sound left him that I will never forget. It was half a sob, half a laugh. 22 years of grief and hope crashing together.
My daughter, my Adeze, you came home. You finally came home to me.
Adeze. He said my name was Adeze, the name my real mother gave me before she died. I did not know what to feel. An hour ago, I was a maid being told to crawl for coins. Now the most powerful man in Nigeria was calling me his lost daughter and weeping. I looked past him and I saw Chidi, the groom. He was staring at me, frozen, pale as paper. And then I understood the strange feeling I'd had when I first saw him.
A sister. All my life my father talked about my lost sister. And it's you.
Chidi stepped forward, tears in his eyes, and did something no one expected. He, the billionaire groom, knelt down in front of me, the maid, and took my hand.
I'm so sorry for how they treated you tonight. My sister. In our own home.
Something in my chest that had been locked since Ada died slowly began to open. I had spent my whole life feeling like I belonged to no one. And now, this. But not everyone in that hall was moved. One person was turning from white to furious red. Vivian, her perfect wedding, her billionaire marriage, was unraveling in real time.
This is absurd. A locket and a birthmark? Anyone can fake a sob story for money. She's a maid, a nobody. You will not ruin my wedding with this street girl.
Chief Emeka slowly rose to his feet and looked at Vivian in a way that silenced the room.
Then we will settle it with proof tonight. A DNA test. My doctor is here. And if she is my blood, Vivian, you will answer for every cruel word you spoke to her.
For the first time all night, I saw fear flicker across Vivian's beautiful face. Because Vivian, as I would soon learn, had a secret of her own. A very dark one. They took us to the chief's private study while the doctor prepared the test. The whole wedding was frozen. 500 guests whispering, phones out, no one leaving. While we waited, Chief Emeka could not stop looking at me. He kept touching my face gently.
You have your mother's eyes. Exactly her eyes. I have missed those eyes for so long.
He told me about her, my mother. Her name was Adeze too. I was named after her. She had been gentle and kind, he said. She used to sew clothes for the poor children herself. I thought of Ada teaching me to sew, of my dream of a tailoring shop. It was in my blood. Then the doctor returned with a tablet in his hand and a strange look on his face.
The results are conclusive. There is a 99.9% match. Chief Emeka, this young woman is your biological daughter, without any doubt.
The study went silent, and then Chief Emeka pulled me into his arms and held me like he'd never let go. 22 years of being no one, ended in that single embrace. I had a father. I had a family.
You will never clean another floor as long as you live. You are Adeze Okonkwo now. And everything I have built, all of it, was always meant to be shared with you.
But even in that beautiful moment, a cold question sat in the back of my mind. Who took me that night, 22 years ago? And why? The answer, it turned out, was standing in a white wedding dress, shaking with rage. Because someone in that mansion had known who I was all along and had prayed I'd never come back. We returned to the grand hall together, my father's arm around me. The guests rose to their feet. An hour ago, they had watched me humiliated. Now they were bowing to the Okonkwo heiress. But I did not want their bows. I wanted one answer. I turned to my father and asked it. Who took me? A baby cannot vanish from a house like this without help from inside. Chief Emeka's face darkened. He said the police always suspected it was someone close.
The night you were taken, only family and trusted staff were in this house. We never found the traitor.
Then from the crowd, Mama Ngozi spoke again. But this time, her voice was hard as iron.
I know who it was. I have carried this fear for 22 years. Ask that woman.
Every eye followed her pointing finger. It landed squarely on the bride, on Vivian. The hall gasped. Vivian's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble.
That's a lie. I was a child myself 22 years ago. How dare that servant accuse me?
Not you, your mother. Your mother was the chief's wife's personal assistant back then.
The whole room turned to an elegant older woman near the front. Vivian's mother, Mrs. Bassi. Her face had gone completely grey. She gripped her chair to keep from falling.
She was fired a week after the baby vanished. Then, somehow, she became suddenly rich. She sold the chief's daughter and used the money to raise her own daughter like a queen.
Suddenly everything made a sick kind of sense. Vivian had grown up on money stolen from my life. The wealth she flaunted, the arrogance, the cruelty to servants, it was all built on my stolen crib. And now, by pure chance, fate had brought the stolen daughter back to the very family on Vivian's wedding day.
Seize her! Nobody leaves this house. The police are being called right now.
Mrs. Bassi broke down completely, and through her tears, the final piece of the truth came out. Mrs. Bassi confessed everything, sobbing on the marble floor in front of all of Lagos.
I was jealous. The chief's wife had everything. I wanted my daughter to have that life. I took the baby to sell her far away, but I could not do it. So I left her at a church.
A church. And a poor seamstress present by that morning had found a baby with a golden locket. That seamstress was Ada, my Ada. She could not have children of her own, so she kept me. She spent her whole life protecting me, loving me, keeping that locket safe for this exact day. Ada never knew whose child I was, but she always told me I was someone special. She was right. I realized then that my poor humble Ada had given me the one thing money never could. Real love. Chief Emeka wept when he heard Ada's name. He said he owed that dead seamstress everything.
A woman with nothing raised my daughter with dignity, while a woman with everything stole her.
That single sentence said everything about what Gen wealth really is. But we were not finished, because there was still Vivian, standing in her ruined white dress. And Chidi, my brother, had just realized the woman he almost married was the daughter of my kidnapper. The wedding, obviously, was over, but Vivian was not going to fall quietly. She had one last card to play, and it was the cruelest one of all. Vivian wiped her tears, and something cold and calculating slid over her face.
How convenient. A maid shows up with a locket on my wedding day and suddenly she's an heiress? How do we know she didn't plan this? How do we know she and that old nanny aren't working together?
For one terrible second, I saw doubt flicker on a few of the guests' faces. She was clever. Even caught, even exposed, she tried to turn the room against me. But she had forgotten one thing. The DNA test had already been done by the chief's own doctor.
Enough, Vivian. The science does not lie, even when your mother did for 22 years.
Then I decided I would not let her paint me as a schemer. I stepped forward and spoke for myself. I did not come here for money, Vivian. I came here to clean your floor for 8,000 naira. An hour ago you threw cash at my feet and told me to crow. Does that sound like a woman with a plan? The doubt on the guests' faces melted into shame. They remembered how they had laughed at me. I don't want your wedding. I don't even want revenge. I just wanted to know where I came from. That honesty did what no argument could. The entire room, finally, fully, turned against Vivian. Even Chidi, who had loved her, looked at her now like he was seeing her for the first time.
I almost married you, and your family destroyed mine before I was even born. It's over, Vivian, all of it. Get out of my father's house.
The police arrived within the hour. Blue lights flashed across the marble driveway. They arrested Mrs. Bassi for the kidnapping. The statute of limitations did not apply to a crime this grave. As they led her out in handcuffs, 22 years of lies finally caught up with her. Vivian tried to leave with her mother, but the chief's lawyers stopped her at the door. It turned out much of Mrs. Bassi's fortune could be traced back to that original crime. The courts would later freeze it all. Vivian, who mocked me for being poor, was about to become poor herself. I watched her walk out into the night, no longer a bride, no longer rich, no longer proud. And strangely, I felt no joy in it. I felt something closer to pity. Ada would have wanted that. As the last guests left, the grand hall grew quiet. My father stood beside me, holding my hand.
The whole city watched them try to break you tonight. And they watched you refuse to break. You have your mother's grace, Adeze. Tomorrow, the world will know the Okonkwo heiress has come home.
That night, I slept in a bed bigger than the entire house Ada and I once shared. But I did not sleep much. I held my locket and I thought of the woman who kept me alive. And I made a quiet promise to Ada in the dark that her love would not end with me. By morning, my face was on every newspaper news channel in the country. The lost Okonkwo heiress, from cleaning maid to billionaire's daughter overnight. It was overwhelming. Days earlier, I could not pay my rent. Now reporters camped outside gold gates for me. But the money and the headlines were not what changed me. It was the mornings with my father. He was old and his health was failing. We both knew we had lost 22 years we could never get back.
So we did not waste a single day. Every morning we had breakfast together in the garden.
He told me stories of my mother until I felt like I had known her my whole life. And Chidi, my brother, became the family I never dreamed of having. He taught me how the family business worked. He was patient. He never once made me feel small.
You've spent your life serving other people. Now let your family serve you for a while.
I cried more in those first weeks of being loved than I ever had in years of being alone. Because that is the secret no one tells you. Sometimes kindness is harder to survive than cruelty. Slowly, I began to heal. Slowly, I learned to answer to the name Adeze.
But I never stopped being Amara inside.
The maid who knew the value of a single naira.
Word of who I was spread fast, and suddenly everyone remembered they had always been kind to me.
The head housekeeper, who had lined us up like furniture, came to me in tears.
Miss Adeze, please, I did not know. If I had known who you were, I swear I would have...
That is exactly the problem. You were only kind to people you thought were important. You should be kind to the maid too, because you never know who she really is. I did not fire her, but I made sure every servant in that house was paid fairly from that day on. Then came the guests. The same people who laughed while I knelt now sent gifts and letters. Invitations, apologies, business offers. The whole city that ignored a maid now adored an heiress. It taught me something I will never forget about people and money. The same person can spit on you or bow to you. The only thing that changes is what they think you are worth. So I stopped needing their approval entirely. I knew my worth when I had nothing. That never left me. But there was one more thing I needed to do. Something more important than any of this. I needed to go back to a small, quiet grave and keep the promise I had made in the dark. The next day I asked my father's driver to take me to a poor cemetery on the edge of the city. Ada's grave was a simple slab of concrete with her name scratched into it. No flowers, no stone angel. When she died, I had not even been able to afford a proper headstone. That had haunted me for 2 years. Now I knelt in the dust in my expensive new clothes, and I told her everything. You were right, Mama. I was someone special. But you were the one who made me special. Not the Okonkwo name. Not the money. You. Every hungry night you gave me your share of the rice. I sat with her for a long time. I told her about my father, my brother, the wedding, the truth. And I told her about the promise that I would use everything I now had to honor the way she lived. Ada spent her life lifting up a child that the world had thrown away. I would spend mine doing the same. I ordered the finest headstone in the country for her, white marble with gold letters. It reads, Ada, she had nothing and gave everything. The truest mother a lost child ever found. But a headstone was not enough. Ada deserved a living memorial. And I already knew what it would be. 3 months later, on a rainy evening, my guards told me a woman was at the gate begging to see me. It was Vivian, but not the Vivian from the wedding. This one was thin, tired, soaped to the bone. The courts had frozen her mother's stolen fortune. Her rich friends had vanished. She had nothing left. The proud woman who threw cash at my feet now stood in the rain, asking me for help. Part of me wanted to send her away, to let her feel exactly what she once made me feel.
I know I have no right to be here. I know what my mother did to your family, to you. I have nowhere to go, Adeze. I am not asking for money. I am asking for a job, any job.
And there it was. The same woman who told me to crawl was now asking to clean my floors. Life has a strange way of turning the wheel all the way around. I looked at her for a long moment, and I thought about what Ada would do, and what my mother would do. Neither of them had a cruel bone in their body, and I did not want to become the thing that hurt me. So I made a decision that shocked everyone in my household. I won't give you a job cleaning my floors, Vivian. I would never make anyone crawl, not even you. She flinched, expecting me to throw her out. But that was not what I meant at all. You spent your life being taught that poor people are worthless. That lie cost you everything. So I'm going to teach you the opposite. I'm opening a school. You will work there and you will learn. I did not do it because Vivian deserved kindness. I did it because I refused to run out of it. Mercy is not something people earn. It is something you decide to keep, even when it would be easier to burn. Vivian broke down completely, and for the first time, I believe she truly understood what she had lost. It was not the money. It was that she had been given cruelty her whole life and passed it on, and I would not. That is the real difference wealth never taught me, but poverty did. How to choose who you become. And with that choice made, I was finally ready to build the thing I had promised Ada I would build. I went to my father and told him I did not want a life of parties and shopping and idle wealth. I told him I wanted to use part of my inheritance to build something in Ada's name. My father smiled the proudest smile I have ever seen and said, "Your mother would have said the exact same thing." So we built Ada's house, a free school for poor girls, teaching them to sew, to read, to run a business. Not charity that keeps people small, a place that hands girls the tools to lift themselves, like Ada lifted me. On opening day, 100 girls in blue uniforms filled the courtyard. Girls the world had ignored. Every one of them reminded me of a barefoot girl who once cleaned floors and dreamed of a tailoring shop. And standing quietly at the back, learning to teach the youngest ones, was Vivian. DJs, she was not the same person anymore. Humility, it turns out, can grow in the strangest soil. The girl who was raised on stolen wealth was finally learning the value of honest work. I named the main hall after Ada. Her faded photo, the one from my locket, hangs above the door, huge now. Every girl who walks in sees the face of a poor seamstress who proved that love is the greatest inheritance. On the second week, a girl of about 10 wandered up to the gates of Ada's house, barefoot and thin. Her name was Chioma. Her mother had died, and she was working as a house girl for a cruel family. When I looked at her, I did not see a stranger. I saw myself, 10 years ago, holding a broom too big for my hands. She almost turned away at the gate. She said a place this beautiful could not be for a girl like her. Those were the exact words I once believed about myself. So I knelt down to her level and I told her the truth. 10 years ago, I was you. I cleaned floors and I thought I was worthless. I was wrong. So are you. This place is exactly for girls like you. In fact, it was built by a girl exactly like you. Chioma became the first girl to live at Ada's house full time. I paid for her schooling myself. Watching her learn to read, to sew, to laugh without fear, healed a part of me I did not know was still broken. Because saving her felt like reaching back through time and saving the frightened little girl I used to be. 6 months in, the biggest television station in Nigeria asked me to tell my story on live national TV. My first instinct was to say no. For most of my life, being seen only brought me humiliation. But then I thought of every invisible maid, every house girl, every child scrubbing a floor and dreaming. So I sat under those bright studio lights and I told the whole country everything. I did not hide the shame. I told them about the wine on my uniform, the cash thrown at my feet, the order to crawl.
And what would you say to the people who treated you that way? If they were watching tonight?
I would say thank you because you taught me exactly what kind of person I never want to become. And to every girl cleaning a floor tonight, hear me. Your address is not your worth. Keep your dignity. The clip went viral across all of Africa overnight. Millions of people watched the former maid speak. Letters poured in from housemaids, orphans, and poor girls who said my story gave them the courage to hope. And that, more than any inheritance, is when I finally understood what my whole life had been preparing me for. My father lived to see Ara's house open. I am so grateful he did, because he did not live much longer. His health had been failing for years. 6 months after the wedding, he grew very weak. But he always said finding me was the medicine that gave him those last good months. I sat by his bed the way I once sat by Ada's, holding his hand, reading to him, feeding him spoon by spoon. Fate is strange. It let me care for the man who lost me. At the very end, the same way I cared for the woman who saved me.
I spent 22 years afraid I would leave this world without ever seeing your face. Now I can finally rest, having held my daughter. Promise me you will keep the family kind. Money is easy. Kindness is the only thing worth leaving behind.
He passed away that night peacefully, with both his children holding his hands. Chidi on one side, me on the other. For the second time in my life, I buried a parent. But this time, I was not alone. I had my brother. And this time, I could afford to bury him beside my mother, where he had wanted to rest for so long. In his will, my father left the Okonkwo Empire to be shared equally between Chidi and me. Suddenly, I was not just an heiress. I was co-owner of one of the largest companies in Africa. The old board members did not respect me. To them, I was a maid who got lucky with a locket. They expected me to sit quietly and let them run things. They did not know who they were dealing with. Because I had cleaned the homes of rich people for years. I had watched how they wasted, how they lied. I knew the value of every naira in a way people born rich never could. At my first board meeting, they presented a huge deal. Everyone was excited. I read the fine print, and I found the lie buried in it. A lie that would have cost the company millions. I scrubbed floors for people who signed papers they never read. I read everything. This deal is a trap. The room went silent. Then the oldest board member, a man who had applauded me most, began to laugh.
Arthur's instincts in his daughter. Gentlemen, I think the heiress just saved us all.
From that day, they stopped seeing the maid and started seeing the leader. And I led.
I ran that company with the one thing an expensive education can never buy: the memory of being hungry. As for my brother, Chidi finally found real love. And it was nothing like Vivian. He fell for a quiet doctor named Ngozi, who volunteered at Ada's house on weekends. She did not care about the Okonkwo money. She cared about the children. That is how he knew she was real. At their wedding, there was no marble stage for humiliation, no cash thrown at anyone's feet. The maids and the drivers ate at the same tables as the guests. That was my one condition. Chidi loved it. I stood beside my brother as his family, no longer a servant hiding against the wall. Year after the night I was told to crawl for coins, I returned to that same grand hall. The same guests were there, but this time they rose when I entered. Not because I was rich, but because they had watched a maid keep her dignity when powerful people tried to take it, and win. Ada's house grew too. In 1 year, 40 of our girls opened their own small tailoring shops. 40 girls who were once invisible, now standing on their own feet. Ada's love multiplied 40 times. People ask me if I hate them. Vivian, her mother, the guests who laughed while I knelt. The truth is, I don't. Hate would mean they still have power over me. And they don't. Not anymore. My kidnapping stole 22 years from me. But it also gave me Ada. And I would not trade Ada for anything. I was born an heiress and raised a maid. And I have come to believe I needed to be both. The heiress gave me the power to change things. But the maid gave me the reason to actually do it. Money can buy you a seat at any table, but it can never buy you the character to deserve it. I keep Ada's locket on me every single day. It is worth more than the entire Okonkwo fortune. Because that locket did not just tell me who my father was. It reminded me who I already was. So now you tell me, on the night they made me kneel, who was truly the poor one in that room? The maid with a locket and her dignity? Or the rich people who had everything except a single kind heart? If this story touched you, stay a moment and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And never forget, the smallest hands holding the smallest locket can carry the greatest inheritance of all. Because real wealth was never the gold. It was always the love that someone leaves inside you.